joins us on the North Olmsted Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram hotline. Yo, they don't know whether to call you Mike Lucas or Mikey McNuggets around here. What do you prefer?
It makes absolutely no difference to me. It's actually crazy. I don't know if I've ever told you this, Earl. No one back home in New Jersey calls me Mike. When my friends from home come up here and they hear people call me Mike, they're like, who? Who's Mike? I was Lucas my entire life growing up, man. I had a 31 student 6th grade class with 7 Mikes. And my teacher, Miss Littlefield, said, nope, not today, boys. And we all went by last name. So from 6th grade on.
That's crazy.
And this has been Lucas.
I was Luke or Lucas, yeah.
Mike, I would
listen to anything.
Now, here's the funny part, because I don't know if you know this. Everybody from the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show fan base, they know how he adopted the name McNuggets. I'm not sure if people on 92.3 The Fan knows this. You want to tell the story real quick?
I think I've heard it before, but I forget.
Yeah, it was the 3rd show we ever had. So that would have been May 11th, 2022. We had Joe Thomas on, and we were doing a top 5 cheese list with Joe Thomas because Joe Thomas is from Wisconsin. Joe Thomas loves cheese. We like to rank things. And I had pepper jack as my number 3 cheese. And Joe Thomas said something along the lines of, I would expect nothing less from a young kid. What's his name? Mikey McNuggets? Yeah, that makes sense. And literally
I do remember you telling me this.
And I am now in Joe Thomas's phone as McNuggets. He sent me a package of his Hall of Fame beef a couple weeks ago. It was labeled True McNuggets. True story, swear on my mother.
This is a true story.
And every time I see Joe, man, it's not Mike, it's not Luke, it's McNuggets. So,
what Hall of Fame give you?
That's funny.
As a new person in Cleveland, you got to roll.
Well, I'll say this because I said this earlier to Earl. I was trying to set up like, yeah, we got Mike Lucas coming on later in the show, and like I always pause before your last name because like sometimes I forget. Not I know your last name's Lucas, but like. We bounce all around all the time, calling you just like Mike, calling you Mike Lucas, calling you Mikey McNuggets. That I want to say McNuggets now like every time because it just rolls off the tongue, and then I forget what your last name is.
I never told you this, Earl. It's a true story. The very first Cavs game I covered, this was during J.B. Bickerstaff, this probably at the end of the 23 season. Raised my hand to ask a question, and this goes to show you how little like Mike did not sink in when I first got here. BJ, who's the Cavs head of PR, goes, Michael. He goes, Mike. Silence. He looks at me. He's like, Mike. I'm like, oh, my name is Mike. I'm sorry. He's like, I'm not calling you McNuggets. You forgot your own name. Yeah, he's like, I'm not calling you McNuggets here, so you're Mike or Michael. And I'm like, oh, now I know. I'm sorry. I was not in the mindset to be prepared to answer a question by that name. So, yeah, whatever you guys want to call me, I am fine with it.
So a lot has been made this week about an article Chris Fedor put out there, and it detailed the framework of a potential hypothetical trade that can be made between the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Orlando Magic. Of course, the key piece coming back for Cleveland will be Jalen Suggs, and then Darius Garland will move on to Orlando. And I want you to kind of like just assess that particular trade package. But explain to this audience, because we kind of set this up as, if you were to trade DG or Jared Allen, you have a different idea of what the return should be and what it should look like.
Yeah, people want to blow things up for the sake of blowing things up. And before I go any further, let me say I am open to any and all trade ideas. Outside of Mobley and Donovan, I am open to hearing offers for Darius, for Jarrett, for any of the role guys. I think that's how Kobe Bryant has to approach the offseason. But just making a trade for the sake of making a trade doesn't make you better. Like the Cavaliers got beat on the basketball court. They got beat because they weren't tough enough. But you know who the 2 toughest teams in the league were this season, guys? The Orlando Magic and the Houston Rockets. Guess how many playoff series they won this year? Combined, none. So just because you're tough doesn't necessarily lead to wins. The Cavs need to get tougher. I am all for exploring options to change this roster up and make tweaks because we've seen 3 years in a row this core 4 plus whoever not be able to play at its highest level in a playoff series, but making a trade just to make a trade doesn't solve the actual issue. In this particular regard of the Darius for Jalen Suggs and other situations, I don't think it solves the Cavs' issue. Is Jalen Suggs a better defender than Darius Garland? Unquestionably, yes, he is. He's an elite point-of-attack defender, 6'5", but he's also incredibly injury-prone. We get mad at Darius for not playing through injuries. You know Darius has played 50 more games than Jalen Suggs has in the last 4 seasons combined. Darius has missed fewer playoff games in more playoff chances than Jalen Suggs has missed. Jalen Suggs is also not the offensive creator Darius Garland is. He's not the shooter Darius Garland is. He's not the facilitator Darius Garland is. And when I look at the Cavs, defense has not been perfect, but it also hasn't been the biggest issue in the playoffs. This season, guys, they had the best offensive rating in the NBA. In the playoffs, their offensive rating would have dropped to 22nd based on the regular season rankings. Last year in the playoffs, they had the 18th best offense in the regular season. That dropped to 25th in the playoffs. 2 years ago, when they lost to the Knicks, they had the 7th best. That dropped to 30th. They can't score in the playoffs. This is 3 years in a row that regardless of the coach, the scheme, they have not been able to score in the playoffs. You look at OKC, you look at the Pacers, the Knicks, they got a bunch of different dudes who can score. I'm not sure how the Cavs as a team get better by trading away an offensive, high-caliber point guard for a defensive point guard. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I got to follow it real quick.
I think that's really well said.
Based on the numbers that you just laid out there, right? And it's pretty much the same core offense change. Why do you, in your opinion, why do you think it is that it's been so hard for this team to score come playoff time?
In the past, I think it didn't have the players. This year, I think it was a philosophy issue. I have been working on this take. I'm actually going to unveil it. So I was saving this for UCSS, but Earl, Spence, you guys are my guys. The Cavs have turned into the most, not predictable because they get to their stuff in different ways, but when you look at OKC, when you look at Indiana, when you look at the Knicks, when you look at some of the best teams, and this is the criticism I have of the Minnesota Timberwolves too, they either get layups or they shoot threes. They have absolutely nothing in between. Cleveland got to the paint and tried to score at the rim, or they shot threes. And when push came to shove and they stopped missing threes, they had nobody capable of getting into the mid-range late in a shot clock and making a bucket. Ant Edwards, if you look at his just shot chart, and Ant Edwards is incredible. He's 23 years old. If you took the name off the shot chart, it looks exactly like James Harden. Ant Edwards should not be playing like James Harden. Look at SGA. Why is he having so much success in the playoffs? Because teams want you to take mid-range shots. And guess what? It's not a good shot if you're not good at it, but if you're good in the mid-range, it's about the best look you can get on a basketball court. Look at Indiana. They work with Siakam through the high post. Halliburton's an advanced mid-range shooter. Miles Turner in those short pick and pops. You have Obi Toppin. You have Nesmith. You have Nembhard. All those guys, not necessarily mid-range scorers by nature, but if that shot's open and available to them, they're willing to take it. And OKC has a bunch. Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, they all operate in that high post mid-range situation. When the Cavs traded for DeAndre Hunter, I was like, ooh, that could be a new wrinkle to the offense because he, at 6'8", can take a smaller defender in a high post situation, hit a turnaround jump shot if needed. Mobley only took like 34 mid-range shots all season. Like that has to change next year. And I think Cavs got so reliant on hitting threes. They were like, we don't need to focus on mid-range shots. But in the playoffs, when teams are taking away what you want to do, the Cavs need a counter. I think that counter is finding ways to attack and score in the mid-range as opposed to focusing so heavily on either getting to the cup or making threes.
Well, now I have a follow-up because I'm curious, like, how much of that is just the nature of how the NBA has evolved, right? Because you're always going to be told, like, the shots near the basket are your best bet, right? Like, when you have an easy layup, like, your chances of making that are better because you're right underneath the basket. You're a foot or 1 to 2 feet away. But at the same time, the game has evolved so much where threes have become important. I feel like there's been, like, this emphasis on, hey, rather than take a mid-range jumper, just step a couple feet back and make it a three, because if you make it, you're going to get more points out of it. Like, it just kind of feels like that's also just the nature of the NBA right now. So how much do you think that's part of the problem here in terms of why the Cavs have prioritized those two areas the most?
I have no issue with them prioritizing it. I mean, look, it had incredible, tremendous, like, otherworldly regular season success. The Celtics last year, they've completely eliminated the mid-range shot. They had the best offensive rating ever last year. I'm not saying it can't work. But when the Celtics stopped making threes in the playoffs, what happened?
Yeah.
When the Cavs stopped making threes in the regular season, in the playoffs against Indy, what happened? You need a counter, right? Like, it's not...
So what you're saying is, like, they need it as an option, it sounds like.
Yes. Yeah, I'm not saying to rechange the whole offensive philosophy and become a mid-range team. But if you're not making threes, maybe don't take 50 of them, right? Like, at some point when you miss threes in games 1 and game 2, and your legs are tired in games 4 and game 5, let's vary up the offense. Let's try to operate in the high post whether it be through Evan Mobley, whether it's getting more isolations for Donovan, DeAndre Hunter. I'm not saying they should scrap. Listen, they had the second best offensive rating in the history of the league this year. It worked. It works when they make shots, though. I said this stat last time I was on with you guys. They led the NBA shooting 42% on wide open threes this season. Against Indiana, they shot 25.7%. That was 8.5 percentage points lower than what would have been 30th in the regular season. So they went from the best to by far the worst. And if you're not making those kind of shots, maybe stop taking them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We all said, eventually they're going to fall and eventually Indiana's going to miss. Well, I don't trust eventually. Let's make something happen. And I just go back to the Thunder. The Thunder were the 8th best three-point shooting team in the entire NBA this season. Out of the 16 teams, that made the playoffs, not the play-in, they have the 13th best three-point percentage among all teams that played. They're not shooting great from three, but why are they still scoring a bunch of points? They found other ways to generate offense instead of just relying on a three-point shot.
Yeah.
And the Cavaliers did not have that counter this postseason.
So, as a follow-up to, we put the hypothetical trade out there for Suggs. What is a trade in your mind? Because I agree with you. I think fans, they get in their heads like this idea of all right, we just got to move on from Garland. I've seen enough. And they just think the grass is greener on the other side with everybody. But you're right. You got to find the right value. You got to find something that's going to make the team better. What is a trade that you think fits that bill? What is a trade that you can make that gets you something that helps you fix what you're missing and is equal value to what you're giving up in a player that is Darius Garland?
I have yet to see a fake trade out there that I think makes Cleveland better. I think there are a couple that is across the board, maybe a net negative, and it's just a change of pace. I'm yet to see one where I'm like, that makes Cleveland better. When you're looking at any of these fake trades, and I'll give you one at the end. I promise I'm not dodging the question. But when you look at how the Cavs have to operate this summer in terms of making a trade, you have to ask yourself this question, and it's really a three-part question. How many teams want to pay the price to upgrade their current point guard, plus give it the type of assets the Cavs would need to get rid of Darius Garland, plus make it cap compliant for both teams? It's a little list, guys. It is not a long list by any means. Teams already have a lot of good point guards. Darius is, in my opinion, between the 8th and 12th best point guard in basketball. So it's not like he's the top notch. But the one team I think that would make sense from a Cleveland standpoint to mix and match would be the New Orleans Pelicans. And they came out yesterday and said that they have nobody on their roster that is considered an untouchable. I don't want to take any part of the Zion Williamson business. After the recent allegation, his injury history, when he's healthy, he's awesome. He's even less healthy, less frequently than Darius. But they have a guy named Trey Murphy. And Earl, remember last summer, he was my number one target for Cleveland. Then he got this giant extension. If you could turn Darius Garland into Trey Murphy and Kelly Olynyk, I'm not 100% sure that makes you significantly better.
Oh, no.
But Trey Murphy has the kind, and I know Kelly Olynyk has this issue. It's more of a cap situation. You got to find.
Well, it's more so.
Kelly can't come to Cleveland.
I was going to say it's more so. How are fans going to reconcile that one? But no, keep going.
Go ahead, but Kelly can't come here.
Are you telling me fans are in love with Darius right now? I understand Kelly has a bad history here, and he's not a fan favorite. But it's not like you're trading Jetty Osman to bring him out. But Trey Murphy's a guy who in New Orleans has been effective. He's been good. He's a young wing. He's got great size. He can shoot. He can create a little bit, but he's in a weird fit in New Orleans. I think he's a guy in a system like Kenny's could thrive. And I forget the numbers. He averaged 14 points a game last year. I think he'd be a 22, 23 point per game scorer with size. He's on a good.
He actually averaged 21 last year.
He was 21 last year?
Yeah. 21.2. Oh. He was 36% from three, 45 from the floor.
I must have been looking at the year before numbers. But to my point, he's even further along than I thought. Yeah. Imagine that guy in this system with the playmaking around him. I think Trey Murphy's a guy that I would bet on his upside plus the positional value. He's the one guy that if you could finagle a trade with New Orleans for, I'd be all in. I want nothing to do with DeJounte Murray. CJ McCollum doesn't make you any better. He's just an older version of Darius. I like Herb Jones, but he's not nearly good enough to part ways with Darius for. Trey Murphy's the guy that I'm looking at. If you're going to make a Darius Garland trade, that's the piece I want back.
All right, so let's spin this. We only got a couple minutes left. Is that the move to be made? Do you think that's the best move to be made for the Cleveland Cavaliers, or do you foresee keeping Darius Garland and trying to find a package with Jared Allen, and you think a move there would better suit the Cavaliers moving forward?
I would explore any and all offers for Jared Allen before I dove into the Darius Garland trade business. I think his contract's more movable. I think it's more realistic. I just mentioned that trade for Trey Murphy. That would give New Orleans 3 point guards. Do they need 3 point guards? 3 undersized point guards? And Murray's not really undersized, but would they want C.J. McCollum, Darius Garland, and DeJounte Murray? Like, that makes sense for Cleveland. I'm not sure it makes sense for New Orleans. So I would explore any and all Jared Allen deals. I got a couple. Can I throw a couple out?
Yeah, absolutely.
So these all work for the cap. Do they make you better? I'm not 100% sure, but these are just some ideas that you could at least talk yourself into. Would you do Jared Allen for Brandon Podziemski and Moses Moody from Golden State? Would you do Jared Allen for Keldon Johnson and a future first from San Antonio? Would you do Jared Allen for Bobby Portis and not Andrew Jackson Jr.? Who's the dude in the dunk contest? Andre Jackson Jr. Potentially.
My guy Spence brought up Bobby Portis. I like that.
Just a couple other options. You could do, if you want to talk with a New Orleans trade with Allen, would they give up Messi, their rookie last year, who was good for Allen, in some sort of swap? It would give you some money back. What about Mo Wagner and Anthony Black for Jared Allen? I mean, just spitballing.
I like that.
Do any of those 100% make you better? I'm not sure, but I think I could talk myself into a lot of those deals before I could talk myself into some of the Darius Garland deals. I think, and I'll end with this, you trade Jared Allen, you can replace that hole behind relatively easily. It's pretty easy to find a big man on the veteran minimum market that can play 10 to 15 minutes a game. You can slide Evan over to the 5 for some of those minutes. DeAndre can play the 4, et cetera, et cetera. You can make up what Jared Allen brings. It's really hard to make up the production and offensive creativity Darius Garland brings with a veteran minimum guy. Like, you don't find those kind of all-star caliber ball handlers for veteran minimum contracts in free agency. So that's why I would explore all the Jared Allen options before I pivot to Darius Garland.
Agreed.
Real quick, because we got to go right now. Who has a bigger comeback year? Because Ty Jerome crapped the bed come the playoffs. Who has a bigger comeback year next year? Is it my boy MJ Emerson or Ty Jerome?
Give me Ty Jerome. Ty Jerome.
Mike don't know what the hell he's talking about. Thanks for the interview,
He's been
brother.
on this vendetta this entire. You've been on this crusade the entire show.